Hello, my name is Pamela Grossman. I work at HSDC, which stands for Hearing, Speech, and Deaf Center in Seattle, Washington. My school is called the Rosen Family Preschool. Today's presentation topic is learning stories, a student study. We study students, and from those studies develop our curriculum based on those studies of students. And we use the learning stories to tell their stories to parents. We call this making learning visible. Hi, my name is Nate Elliott. I'm a lead teacher at the Rosen Family Preschool's ASL Immersion Classroom. I wanted to take this opportunity to expand about our program, our philosophical choices and values. I feel if I provide the context on those decisions, it should help you see why we've made these choices in designing our curriculum, our classroom as a third teacher, how we represent the child's image in the classroom, and how we include families. It's really at the heart of how we make learning visible for the child, teachers, and their families. First, we as a school decided to be Reggio Emilia influenced in our classroom because we really embrace the idea of how they view the child as a competent, natural-born learner. The children are competent and are able to show what they know in 100 different languages. That helped us determine our mission, shown here. And I want to emphasize that we commit to collaborating with families, the child, and ourselves as co-learners. With the philosophy of Reggio Emilia, we already view the child as competent. So our job is to change the questions we ask when we reflect on that child's learning. Because our program really values viewing children as competent learners who can show us their skills in many different languages, that really helps change our lens, how we view the children. We decided to show their learning as co-learners in what we call learning stories. The learning stories should be accessible to the child, the teacher, and their parents. So they include pictures, questions, and curiosities that we can all see and understand together. Annie will go into a bit more detail on learning stories next. Hi, my name is Annie Utley Yonita. I'm a lead teacher for the bilingual deaf and hard of hearing classroom at Rosen. You might be thinking or wondering how we study children. Well, our work is based on a thinking lens for reflection and inquiry. That is an approach that was developed by Deb Curtis and Margie Carter. We've been really fortunate to be working with Deb for the past year as our consultant. She's worked closely with us on how to study and observe children. And she strongly believes that we should not be looking for deficits, trying to identify what's missing, where we need to fill in gaps. That's not where we should be attending. Her emphasis is that we should look for the student's competencies. What is that child already good at? Identify those things. And so that's what we've internalized from Deb into our teaching. I'll show you some few slides next about the thinking lens, and we also have a few clips from my one-on-one session conducted with a student of ours. Hopefully you'll be able to see how we both study, find evidence for the students' competencies, and then turn them into a learning story. Which cars? You looking for a toy? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna play with? Honey, he just tried to eat something. Oh, Buzz Lightyear. He's flying. You just watched a video of Suli. That's the student's name. I had been thinking about the lens and which lens I wanted to use and focus on. I knew I wanted to look for details, and so I was looking really at his facial expression, body language, to see what captured my attention. What was he intrigued by? And as you saw, Suli's face really lit up when he found his Buzz Lightyear. He lit up. His whole face was different, and it was a dramatic difference. Different than before. He was pulling out other toys and just sort of passing them by, not thinking about them, but he was delighted when he got to Buzz Lightyear, and that captured my attention. His mom reinforced that by signing flying, and Suli was happily playing with Buzz Lightyear, and he made a continued movement alongside the movements mom was making, and that's thrilling to see. You could see Suli when he picked up Buzz Lightyear, he just lit up in his mind and his heart, and I knew that that's what we had to create a learning story on. Hug and then throw it away. Just like Bradley. Bradley and Suli are flying together. Sun shining, you're wondering. Where are you flying to? I see Minnie Mouse. You're eating Buzz. He just bit on Buzz. Are you hungry? Are you hungry? He's really looking at Buzz closely. As you just observed, Sully, so cool. And you saw how he was interacting with Buzz Lightyear. He played with the movements and then even tried biting on the toy. He used the toy to play with the light, observing how the light reflected off the toy. And by watching him play, I wondered why he thought to do that. Why did that excite him? Why was he so fascinated and curious about that interaction he was having? I was observing him and wondering why I was feeling so excited about what I was seeing. And I enjoyed that process a lot. After I viewed the recording, I went back and took pictures of all the details that I noticed and those that I wanted to include in my learning story. Lastly, I thought about what would be the next steps. I thought about activities I could expand and build experience from Sully's interaction with Buzz. I thought about themes. I could create activities on flight. Wondered if Sully would be interested in that. Wonder if he'd be more interested in learning about movements, up, down, sideways. Made me start to consider the noises he made when he was flying with Buzz. Would he be interested in vibrations and how those vibrations would feel on his body? I thought a lot about how I could expand just from that one interaction with Buzz. So many possibilities for Sully to experiment and learn. I thought about expanding vocabulary from just this one sign that indicates flying, but I could introduce new vocabulary to Sully using that first sign, develop his vocabulary knowledge with his toy or even other themes like flying, vibration, and others. So that's how I process the information with the lens that I wanted to use and focus on, and create a learning story based on the information. And you'll see that later on in the PowerPoint. Hi, my name is Bradley Veris. I'm a classroom assistant for the bilingual deaf and hard of hearing classroom at the Rosen Family Preschool. I'm here to tell you what's included in a learning story. First, we choose a title that we feel is most fitting. Second, we incorporate pictures as evidence. Third, we write "Dear Student," writing a story describing something compelling that was observed, but it's framed as a letter from the teacher to the child. Fourth, what it means is the section where the teacher explains the significance of what was observed, possibly including reference to standards, outcomes, theoretical perspectives, and goals for that child's development. Fifth, it's opportunities and possibilities where the teacher explains how to scaffold and improve upon that learning. They talk about what they learned from writing the story and observing the child. And sixth is continuing the conversation, which is a final page where we invite the family, parents, and other staff, even community members, to continue the conversation, to respond and continue that thread. Hello, my name is Deandra Thompson. I am the classroom assistant for the ASL immersion class. The topic of discussion: how is learning stories shared with the families? And we do this in a few different ways. I'll talk to you about 3. On a weekly basis, there are parent and teacher conferences where teachers discuss what learning stories, highlights, areas of growth for that child, and then the family is sent their own copy of the learning story. At the end of the school year, all learning stories for each child are collected and made into a book, and we give those to the families for them to keep. Also, Rosen teachers would make books, and we keep a copy for our own documentation purpose and for our analysis purposes. Now, with the permission of parents, the learning stories can be shared in what we call Remini, which is our family sharing room. So families have an opportunity to access different families' learning stories. Finally, in person, in the classroom, we have learning stories that we print and post on our walls so that when parents and families or community members come in, they can take a look. Hi, I am Sam, an assistant teacher. Our program is Reggio Emilia, which is play-based. There are some people who might enter a classroom and say, oh, they cannot just play all day. I want to remind you that the pedagogy and educational system in general is really a recent development. Far, far back in time, what did we do? We didn't have a place of learning. We learned it outside, at home, in nature. We learned everywhere. That was the learning experience. And so now with learning stories, we are writing for the child to say, we see you, you did this. The learning stories also to show parents at home when parents might be struggling on why students are engaging in certain behaviors. Learning stories can reflect their child's experience. And then later on, when similar situations occur, parents are better equipped to respond. Let's take a look at some of these examples. Now you see how our values as a program are represented in learning stories. Like we put our values into practice at work. Well, one example, we stick to a time in our daily schedule every day where a team of teachers come together to reflect, discuss, and analyze each child's learning every day. It's earmarked in our schedule. We also have time in the schedule to talk with parents once a week, sometimes even twice a week. Communicating often with families helps us build trust. and instill our values and show that our values are instilled in everything we do. Now, during times of COVID, this frequent interaction with families naturally informed the transition to working remotely. We were able to continue to support families with their needs at home, provide ASL classes, and support our families in a lot of different ways for how they both learned and worked with their student. Another example is how we used learning stories in balance with teaching strategies gold, or TSG, which is an assessment tool. And that gave families a holistic portrait of their child's skills and possibly how they might improve in the future. Now you can see our values are placed into the schedule. They're designed that way. You see our values are placed in learning stories. And our values are implemented in how we work together with families, teachers, and children while learning takes place. Those specific choices make us who we are at Rosen. This philosophy has changed the way I look at education. It's amazing to see students' ability to express and communicate their ideas through visual representations at such an early age. I had been working at big deaf schools for the past 8 or 9 years. And then when I started working here at Rosen, it was a really different experience. My whole entire perspective to learning changed 180 degrees. Using this lens, the idea of the thinking lens, focusing on students' strengths, looking for their competencies, brings me so much joy. And my relationships with my students are solidified, they're strong, even through virtual learning. My relationships with parents are very warm and interactive. It's very engaging. It's a two-way street. And my relationships with my coworkers, my team members, we really get excited talking about our students' competencies and how we observe them. And we become very motivated about our work, and that enthusiasm has influenced me. It's really changed my perspective on life and the world around me. It's been incredible. Learning stories have impacted my approach, really just with children in general. Before, I thought children's behavior and actions from the age of 3 to 5 was cute, a little odd, but certainly nothing special. Now with learning stories and the science behind development, schema theory, you really have to dive into all of these areas. It becomes fascinating and it helps me approach teaching with more curiosity. I notice myself, I have more motivation and energy. I'm always looking now for what my students can teach me, and that's what I'm enjoying. When we start using learning stories as documentation, and intentionally seek out competencies of children, that had a profound impact on me. It's changed me because I see people differently. The process of uncovering these strengths in these individual students, that's part of me now. It's become a source of patience, and it's taught me a lot more empathy and understanding. Our values as a program really have an influence on everything we do, from how we exhibit learning and making that learning visible for families and children, to how we view children and our role. We've shifted to co-learners. Instead of trying to fill the student with the knowledge I have, we co-learn. I love learning stories, because during this process, we notice something amazing about a child, and that something moves us. We are then able to show that to their family, to the community, and to the child themselves. And seeing students feel confident and that they not only have one language that they have access to, but hundreds of different languages in order to express themselves, so that they can show us their learning in so many different ways, is amazing. We have this precious responsibility to make that learning visible for all. Thank you so much from the team of the Rosen Family Preschool. Bye-bye.